Well, it's December 1st. It's a Monday. Apparently, it's a day for big moves. A big day for big news. A big day for a lot of big things to happen. We'll be discussing Mark Carney announcing a cabinet shuffle today, which we'll see what comes of that. And secondly, Bill C-9 getting headlines once again as the Liberals pushed through as it came to the surface that the Liberals made a deal with the Bloc Québécois to get religious exemptions stripped so that anyone and everyone, including you who read religious texts, could be convicted of hate speech if you even so much as read those scriptures. It's a wild one today. We'll be getting into all of it. Welcome to the Elevate Podcast. I'm your host, Josh. If you're getting value from today's episode, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to grow. It helps us to get to new audiences. And it helps people see that there is something different than what the mainstream media has to offer. And now let's get our first story, shall we? Carney to shuffle cabinet Monday after Guilbeault resignation, which we came to expect. When Guilbeault says bye-bye, we start expecting at least someone to fill in. But for this to be announced as a shuffle seems interesting. Because typically, especially when things have been a little rocky in the Carney administration, you'd see a full shuffle probably come in January before the new year. It's they get back, like, all right, we're going to start reassigning people. We're going to refocus. We're expecting another election this year. This is who we're going to put in place, and we're going to move forward. That's what you expect. Them to announce a shuffle before Christmas, before Parliament rises, that's interesting. Here it says, Mark Carney will shuffle his cabinet today after the resignation of Stephen Guilbeault, who served as a Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Mr. Guilbeault left the post Thursday over concerns the government was walking away from efforts to combat climate change. His decision to resign from cabinet followed the signing of a new energy accord, as we know the story, and that's pretty much all they have to say about that, is Carney's expected to bring someone in to fill in for Guilbeault's spot, potentially bring in other people today. We don't know. However, what's most likely going to happen is he's going to bring in maybe one or two more faces into cabinet, get things situated, go into Christmas holidays, do their thing, and come back and do a full reshuffle. However, if a full reshuffle happens today, that is mighty interesting. As we said, this is the third cabinet reshuffle during this administration, technically the fourth. March 14th, there was a cabinet reshuffle when Carney was sworn in as prime minister. May 13th was the first significant shuffle Mark Carney did after the election. September 16th, a smaller shuffle occurred. And then December 1st is today, another shuffle is taking place. So technically, as he's been prime minister, 4 cabinet shuffles, which is not normal. No matter how big, small, medium-sized these shuffles have been, it's not normal. It simply isn't. There is so much discombobulation, it seems like, on the Liberal side that we don't know who we're actually getting week in and week out at this point of who's covering which portfolio. I imagine Lena Diab will be saying bye-bye fairly shortly, as she is shown to be incredibly incompetent in the job as Minister of Immigration. But we will see. I remember when I had Amanda Galbraith on the show last week, we discussed cabinet shuffles as she has worked significantly. She worked as a staffer under the Stephen Harper administration. She's worked as a staffer in for the mayor of Toronto. She's got significant background experience now that she runs her own firm when it comes to media relations. But this is what she had to say when I asked if this is normal. Let's just kind of refresh our memory, shall we?
That brings me back down to more of the question around, is this normal though? Like, we've had an election about 6 or 7 months ago, and we're already hearing talks of a cabinet shuffle. Like, is that normal for this type of situation of a minority government?
3 cabinet shuffles in a year? No, it's not normal. It's actually quite disruptive. And I can say this as somebody who's been a staffer going through shuffles and also works with organizations who are trying to talk to government. And shuffles happen, basically all work stops, you get new ministers, everything kind of gets, and you don't know where your policy is going to be at. Is it going to be scrapped? Like, the actual functioning of government stops. So it is intensely disruptive. I think it unfocuses the government.
Shad hits it there. Whereas, we hear reshuffles, we hear about personnel changes on this side when we're looking from the outside looking in. But when it comes to the inner workings of government, when reshuffles happen, it's like, I don't know, have you ever been in a job where you get a new boss? You know what that adjustment is like? They have to get used to their workload. They have to figure out what their role is. They have to figure out what you do for a living, how to figure out what that person's doing for a living. Like, they oversee a lot. So when you get a new boss, she said it's insanely disruptive, especially those who are working in these departments. So for that to happen 3 official times during this parliament, technically there was a time just before the election, another shuffle happened under Mark Carney. So technically 4 underneath this prime minister. That's a lot of movement. And it doesn't look good from the outside looking in. And do you know what else doesn't look good? Well, this was fascinating, folks. This story was drumming up a little bit late last week, but of course, news of the MOU kind of overtook it and no one really knew what was going on. However, Andrew Lawton, MP, was doing the Lord's work. He was making sure that this bill was not progressing as best to his ability in committee. I'll explain here shortly. Liberal deal with Bloc means hate speech laws will lose exemption for sincerely held religious belief. The Liberals have agreed to remove religious exemptions from Canada's hate speech laws to secure Bloc Québécois support to help pass its bill targeting hate and terror symbols, National Post has learned. Currently, the law exempts hateful or anti-Semitic speech if it is based in good faith on the interpretation of a religious text, but that immunity is set to be removed. Additionally, the Liberals are expected to back off plans to eliminate the need for provincial attorney general sign-off to pursue a hate propaganda prosecution. The removal of the religious exemption is expected to come via an amendment to the criminal code in the form of Bill C-9 at the Parliamentary Justice Committee that will be supported by both the Liberals and the Bloc, a senior government source confirmed. The source was granted anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss party negotiations publicly. But we do have Bloc, the source said. The bill is in a place now, even with those Bloc amendments, that everyone is happy. They added in reference to Liberal and Bloc MPs. Bill C-9, which has fulfilled a campaign promise Prime Minister Mark Carney made during the spring election, was his minority government's first major justice bill, introduced earlier this fall by Justice Minister Sean Fraser. It seeks multiple changes to the criminal code to confront the issue of hate, with the Liberals citing a rise in police-reported incidents in recent years, particularly in the wake of sustained anti-Israel protests over the last 2 years. Chief among the proposed changes is creating a new offense for intimidating someone to the point of blocking their access to a place of worship or another center used by an identifiable group, as well as criminalizing the act of promoting hate by displaying a hate or terror symbol, such as one tied to a listed terrorist organization or swastika. So here's the thing, right? It's really wild the fact that we are going to get this quote-unquote religious exemption stripped away from our criminal code. Because as they said, as long as someone using it in good faith, it was allowed in our country. Now, that is disappearing. If you so much as read this scripture, especially shout out to the churches who do sermons and post them online, you're now opening yourself up to either be fined or imprisoned if this goes through, which sounds like it likely will. I've been a part of churches and heard sermons that said this day was coming, that the government was going to overstep so much at some point that even reading certain passages in church could be opening yourself up to some serious legal issues and the government coming after you. It's now putting a whole different light in terms of what your faith entails. They're saying, well, people use it to weaponize and hurt people. It's like, yeah, but this is not what that's saying. This one pretty much indiscriminately describes that even so much as mentioning these things could get you in trouble. So naturally, Conservative Party is fired up. And Andrew Lawton saw this coming, and that happened in committee last week where all the Liberals were so mad at Andrew Lawton because he filibustered on this for over 2 hours to make sure that this wouldn't progress through committee. And this was, as
we could have had more witness testimony. We could have had more insights had the Liberals not decided that 1 year was too cruel and unusual a punishment for people who traffic in child sexual exploitation and abuse material. And I find it shocking that that was what they decided was their hill to die on. Well, my hill to die on is freedom of expression. And this Liberal government has shown reckless disregard for that. When we engage in work as committee, we are the gatekeepers between law that has not been scrutinized, has not been vetted, has not been analyzed, and things that are passed by this House of Commons. When you try to aggressively and wrongfully accelerate the committee process, what you are doing is denying Canadians the opportunity to improve bad law or to, in some cases, gut terrible law. So when you try to speed up that process, it is either because you do not care what Canadians have to say, or more importantly, you know what they're going to say. And this is precisely what's happening on Bill C-9.
And this man did this for over 2 hours, forcing them to have to close shop, end the day, and move on. That's the beauty of filibustering, right? If you're good at it, well, you're good at it. And it's not just I'm just talking. I'm just talking like there's some specific parameters around filibustering. Like you cannot repeat yourself. You got to keep it moving. You have to make sense. Like these are some things that are some rules that you have to follow. It's not just, hey, I went to and it has to be on topic, right? I went to the ice cream store the other day. Like there's none of that. It has to be on topic. It has to be focused. It can't repeat yourself. It takes a skill to do it, especially for that amount of time. And he did it. And the Liberals were not too happy with it. Sean Fraser brought this up in the House of Commons and had this to say about, and obviously casting the Conservatives as some terrible people who don't care about the safety of Canadians. That's what he had to say.
And the future of this legislation. The Justice Committee will be looking at the specific clauses of this bill after question period today, and Canadians will come to understand which parties are interested in protecting communities against hate and which are more interested in obstructing and delaying this legislation. When Canadians are watching, I hope we can demonstrate a spirit of...
And then the tweet says this: the Conservatives are currently obstructing the Justice Committee to prevent it from advancing laws to address hate crimes in this country. We need to take action to combat hate. It is disappointing, but not surprising to see them turn this important bill into a partisan game. And this is, quite frankly, Sean Fraser is an evil person. I'll say it straight up. I do not care at this point. He is not a nice guy. He thinks he's a good guy. He's, quite frankly, not good. He's not a good guy. For you to come out and say that with a straight face is baffling, to say the least. We've seen what this Liberal government does. They create the problem and then try to provide the solution to the problem. They created this issue with unsustainable levels of immigration, bringing in people unvetted for the most part, who just came in, did their thing, and now a lot of chaos is happening in our streets where we're seeing foreign conflict erupt in our streets. And this was their resolution for that. All the Palestinian protests intimidating Jewish Canadians came from their poor immigration policies, specifically this guy's poor immigration policies, as he was the immigration minister for a time. And now is trying to be the justice minister and try to provide the solution to the problem that he created. Well, we have to deal with hate now. Do we? Well, we didn't really have to deal with hate speech until you were immigration minister, it seemed like. And for the longest time, this Liberal Party said, all the stuff we were seeing in the streets, it's not happening. Things getting lit on fire in Montreal. Well, Justin Trudeau's party at the Taylor Swift concert. No, it's not happening. Fake news. Then all of a sudden they acknowledge it and they have a solution for it. Give me a break. I can't take you seriously and will not take you seriously, and I will not play your stupid little games calling the Conservatives or people like me who believe these things that this is wrong. It's unconstitutional, and it really tramples on the rights of Canadians who are of faith, which is a wide variety of people in this country. But here we are. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to be bipartisan. I'm not surprised. Enough with the crap disappointment. Enough with the sob story. Enough with the games that you're playing. No one's playing games here. All I know is the Conservatives are very serious. I know I'm very serious. And we're done with you playing games. And let's be honest for 2 seconds. This is all one big play for control that you are facilitating, Mr. Sean Fraser. And we're not going to stand for it and be very loud about it. Very loud about it. Leslie Church, another MP, was not happy with Andrew Lawton filibustering and causing an issue of this whole proceeding. She said after speaking for 107 minutes straight, I was off a little less than 2 hours, not allowing anyone else to speak, preventing the committee from advancing our hate crime and bail reform laws. Andrew Lawton claims Conservatives are not obstructing the Justice Committee from doing its work. Canadians want serious action to combat hate now, not games. The stakes are too high. We must not allow Bill C-9 to be unnecessarily delayed. And this is the stupid story and narrative they keep pushing, which you know is not true. They're not really interested in combating hate. They're not really interested in keeping people safe. They are very interested in applying more laws to police what you think, what your speech is, and what you believe. Here we are, folks. Here we are. Even the likes of some X accounts wanted to get very nasty with Andrew Lawton, take issue with them. Dale Thompson said this: I'm pretty sure your hill to die on is McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's. Obviously, taking a shot at Andrew Lawton's weight. These people are disgusting, but that's all they have. All they can do is go after someone's appearances instead of going after the substance of what they are currently arguing. That's how these people operate. It's quite frankly disgusting. But this thing goes back to my episode from this morning. It's incumbent upon conservatives to roll with these punches and give it right back, but in a very different way. Play along, have fun, be self-deprecating, and continue to expose the corruption behind the scenes. And that's what Andrew Lawton did in response to this post. Again, this post says, your hill to die on is McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's. And Andrew Lawton came back with this. He says, Canada first. I'm a Harvey's man. Oh, God. I gotta love Andrew for that, right? People being so nasty and ridiculous, and that's what they come back with. They hit you with that, and he's like, all right, yeah, sure. I'm a little overweight. I'm a Harvey's guy. Screw you. Gotta love Andrew in his sense of humor with this, and that's what you have to do. That's really how you deal with the trolls, is you just have to let them just make fun of yourself and move on and continue to focus on what really matters, because we cannot forget what happened a month ago in this Justice Committee, where Mark Miller uttered these words, and this should have been the warning of exactly what this Liberal government is trying to do with Bill C-9.
If someone were literally invoking a passage from, in this case, the Bible, but there are other religious texts that say the same thing, and somehow say that this is good faith. I mean, clearly there are situations in these texts where these statements are hateful. They should not be used to invoke or be a defense, and there should perhaps be discretion for prosecutors to press charges. I just want to understand what your notion of good faith is in this context, where there are clearly passages in religious texts that are clearly hateful. If someone were...
Here's the thing. I'm going to say this from my Christian perspective. I do not give a crap what you deem to be hateful. And quite frankly, no one of any religious persuasion cares what you deem to be hateful. They don't care what the government deems to be hateful. I'll say this from the Christian perspective. We are instructed to play nice. We are instructed to work with the government and our official authorities to make sure that we make their lives easy and we shine the light of Jesus. That is the mantra of a Christian. However, at any point that a government or a leading authority starts contradicting and speaking against God's word and starts speaking against what the Bible does say, they are going to be done listening to you very quickly. However, in Canada, there are some Christians, I'll say, who don't really live by any such conviction, that will just kind of go along with this, like, okay, I guess we'll stop talking about this scripture in our services. But then there will be some who will stand on conviction in the face of uncertainty and say, screw you. Jesus is Lord. I do not care. I'm going to assume the Jewish faith is going to be something similar. Those who are Muslim are probably going to say something very similar too. Even when you get this passed through, good luck trying to put this into practice. We'll see how that all goes. Because what is hateful? What is even, you talk about good faith in this video, Mark Miller. What is the context of good faith? Because there's a lot of hateful things out there. Now, how about you define for me, what is hateful in your eyes, Mark Miller? What is hateful in your eyes, Liberal Party? Is it anything that threatens your power? Is it anything that threatens the control you have over the country and the population? What is it? We'd like to know what your definition of hate is. Quite frankly, you haven't been able to give us one yet. And until then, I will not be recognizing this nonsense. Anyways, that's it for me. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.